Have you ever wondered whether the values we live by are truly ours, or if they were imposed upon us centuries ago? We live in a world filled with rules, traditions, and invisible codes of conduct. Yet more than 100 years ago, a man stood up to say something shocking: morality itself might be a grand illusion. Friedrich Nietzsche, one of the most provocative thinkers of modern times, dared to question not just society, but the very foundation of our beliefs. His explosive ideas shattered complacency, forcing humanity to confront questions that remain painfully relevant today. Could it be that our moral codes, which we so proudly uphold, are in fact chains that prevent us from living authentically? This is the story of Nietzsche, the philosopher who exposed the illusion of morality, and why his voice still echoes with disturbing clarity in our digital age. Nietzsche lived during the turbulent second half of the 19th century, a time when Europe was caught between the old order of religion and monarchy and the new forces of science, nationalism, and industrial capitalism. Faith in God was eroding under the relentless advance of scientific knowledge. Darwin had shown that humanity was not divinely created, but evolved like every other creature. Industrialization was remaking society at breakneck speed. To many, this was an age of progress. But Nietzsche saw something more dangerous: the collapse of meaning itself. As he put it bluntly, God is dead, and we have killed him. With these words, he did not merely announce the decline of religion. He diagnosed the birth of a terrifying vacuum, the dawn of nihilism, when people no longer believe in any ultimate truth. What happens to a society when its deepest values crumble? For Nietzsche, the answer was clear. It risks falling into despair, mediocrity, and the rule of the herd. He argued that most of what we call morality is nothing but a clever invention by the weak to control the strong. For centuries, religious traditions had celebrated humility, obedience, and meekness as virtues, but Nietzsche unmasked them as weapons forged by the powerless to tame the powerful. He called this system slave morality. In contrast, he admired what he called master morality, the ancient code of strength, creativity, and vitality that affirmed life in all its intensity. In his eyes, modern society was slowly suffocating under the weight of the slave's revenge. Consider the way we treat ambition today. We claim to admire originality and courage, yet most of us quickly condemn those who step too far outside accepted norms. Social media shames the nonconformist. Corporations demand innovation, but only within safe boundaries. Governments preach freedom but constantly monitor, regulate, and discipline their citizens. Nietzsche would have laughed bitterly. He saw that the herd loves to chant about equality and justice, not out of true love for humanity, but out of resentment. Resentment against the strong, against those who dare to live differently, against the rare spirits who refuse to kneel. But Nietzsche did not simply tear down morality. He sought to build something greater, the idea of the Übermensch or Overman. This figure is not a tyrant or dictator, but a new kind of human being, one who creates his own values instead of inheriting them. The Overman lives beyond good and evil as traditionally defined. He does not ask, "Is this allowed?" but "Does this affirm life?" He is willing to endure suffering, struggle, and loneliness if it means living authentically. In an age when the death of God threatened to leave humanity adrift in meaninglessness, Nietzsche called for a radical revaluation of all values. Only by becoming creators of meaning, he believed, could we avoid sinking into nihilism. What makes Nietzsche's insight so urgent today is how perfectly it applies to the modern condition. Our time is haunted by crises of meaning. We possess dazzling technologies, instant communication, and material abundance. Yet depression, anxiety, and loneliness are at historic highs. We preach tolerance but often practice shallow conformity. Algorithms dictate our desires more effectively than priests ever did. The herd has not disappeared. It has been digitized, amplified, and globalized. Nietzsche would have recognized this instantly. The great danger is not oppression by tyrants, but voluntary submission to the comfort of the herd, which despises anyone who dares to stand apart. He warned us of the last man, a pitiful creature who avoids risk, shuns greatness, and seeks only comfort. The last man does not want truth, beauty, or transcendence. He only wants entertainment, convenience, and safety. Does this not sound eerily familiar? Our society celebrates the endless scrolling feed, the numbing distractions, the consumer paradise where meaning is reduced to buying the next upgrade. We congratulate ourselves for being progressive and enlightened, but underneath we may be precisely what Nietzsche feared. A civilization of last men, proud of our mediocrity, terrified of real freedom. Nietzsche's critique did not stop at morality or society. He attacked the very foundations of truth. He argued that what we call truth is often just a collection of metaphors that have hardened over time. We do not see reality as it is, but through the lenses of language, culture, and power. Every so-called truth, he claimed, carries the fingerprints of human interests and struggles. For him, philosophy was not a quest for eternal truths, but a battlefield of interpretations. In this sense, he anticipated the modern insight that knowledge is never neutral, but always shaped by power dynamics. When governments, corporations, or even scientific institutions claim to have the truth, Nietzsche whispers to us, "Look deeper. Who benefits from this truth being believed?" This radical skepticism leads to discomfort but also liberation. If truths are human constructions, then they can be reconstructed. We are not condemned to live under inherited illusions. We can shape new horizons of meaning, but the price of this freedom is heavy. It demands courage, the courage to live without final guarantees, to embrace uncertainty, and to carry the burden of creating one's own path. This is why Nietzsche's philosophy can never be reduced to slogans or quick lessons. He himself paid a terrible price for his relentless quest. His life was marked by solitude, illness, and eventual mental collapse. He walked away from secure academic positions, broke with friends, and lived much of his life wandering Europe, writing feverishly while plagued by migraines and failing health. He died in obscurity, dismissed as a madman by many of his contemporaries. And yet, decades later, his words set fire to the imagination of artists, revolutionaries, and thinkers around the world. From existentialist philosophers like Sartre and Camus, to psychologists like Jung, to writers like Kafka and Dostoevsky, Nietzsche's fingerprints are everywhere. But Nietzsche's legacy is also deeply controversial. His ideas were distorted by others, most notoriously, the Nazis, who twisted his concept of the Overman into a justification for racial supremacy and tyranny. This betrayal horrified later interpreters who understood that Nietzsche despised nationalism, antisemitism, and herd mentality of every kind. His true Overman was not a political dictator, but a spiritual pioneer, one who dares to live authentically in the absence of divine order. The misuse of his philosophy stands as a warning. Dangerous truths can be corrupted by those who hunger for power. Still, his central message remains urgent. If we cling to the illusion of ready-made morality, we risk becoming slaves to rules that no longer serve us. If we surrender to nihilism, we risk sinking into despair. But if we accept the challenge to create our own values, we open the possibility of a deeper, more authentic form of existence. This is why Nietzsche continues to haunt us. He forces us to look in the mirror and ask, are we living as creators, or merely as consumers of values handed down to us? Let's bring this into sharper focus. Imagine the workplace today. Most jobs require conformity, adherence to protocols, and avoidance of risk. Employees are rewarded for obedience, not creativity. The structure is designed to produce efficiency, not authenticity. Nietzsche would have said, this is morality at work, the morality of the herd, ensuring that no individual dares to rise too high, or take our digital culture. Influencers gain millions of followers not by creating new values, but by perfecting the art of mimicry, recycling trends, chasing algorithms, and catering to the lowest common denominator. The crowd applauds mediocrity while punishing true originality. In such a world, to be Nietzschean is to resist, to carve out space for genuine creation even when the herd laughs or condemns. Nietzsche also reminds us of the role of suffering. Unlike modern culture which desperately seeks to avoid pain, Nietzsche saw suffering as essential to growth. He believed that greatness cannot be achieved without struggle. The Overman is forged in fire, not comfort. Today we flee from discomfort at every turn, yet without it we stagnate. In our obsession with safety and pleasure, Are we not depriving ourselves of the very conditions that make life worth living? Nietzsche's warning is clear. A life without struggle is a life without depth. And what of love, art, and beauty? Nietzsche saw them not as luxuries but as vital expressions of life's affirmation. He believed art had the power to transfigure suffering, to turn pain into meaning. For him, music was especially powerful. It spoke directly to the instincts, bypassing rational constraints. He adored the music of Wagner in his youth, though later he broke with him in disgust at Wagner's nationalism. Still, Nietzsche never stopped believing in the transformative power of art. In a world without God, art could serve as a kind of replacement, a space where human beings confront tragedy, yet still affirm life. Does this not speak directly to our own moment, when art, film, and music provide glimpses of transcendence in a culture otherwise dominated by consumerism? Nietzsche's thought, though born in the 19th century, reads like prophecy today. He anticipated a world where traditional religion would collapse, leaving people vulnerable to new idols: nationalism, consumerism, ideology, technology. He predicted that nihilism would spread like a plague, hollowing out meaning from our lives. And he warned of the rise of the last man, satisfied with distractions while humanity's higher potential withers away. Look around. Do we not see his prophecy fulfilled in endless entertainment streams? The worship of celebrity culture, the addiction to convenience, and the fear of true independence. Yet Nietzsche does not leave us without hope. His philosophy is a challenge, a call to courage. He invites us to step out of the herd, to endure the loneliness of freedom, and to create values worthy of human greatness. He asks us to become overmen, not in the sense of dominating others, but in the sense of mastering ourselves. To live beyond good and evil, not because nothing matters, but because everything matters so much that we cannot simply inherit our standards. We must forge them in the fire of our own existence. So where does that leave us today? Perhaps the most practical lesson from Nietzsche is this: stop waiting for ready-made meaning. Stop expecting the world, the government, the church, or even science to hand you the truth. Instead, become a creator. Ask yourself, what do I truly value? What am I willing to suffer for? What vision of life would I affirm, even if I had to live it again and again for eternity? This is Nietzsche's haunting thought experiment, the eternal recurrence. If you had to relive your life infinitely, would you embrace it, or despair? Your answer reveals whether you are living authentically or merely drifting. More than a century after his death, Nietzsche remains both dangerous and necessary. Dangerous because his ideas strip away comforting illusions. Necessary because without that stripping away, we remain trapped in cages built by others. He forces us to confront the hardest questions. What if morality is an illusion? What if truth is a construction? What if meaning is not given but created? These questions are unsettling, but they also open the door to freedom. In the end, Nietzsche's voice is not one of despair but a fierce affirmation. He tells us, the world may have no preordained meaning, but that does not diminish life, it enhances it. For it means that every moment, every choice, every act of creation is infinitely significant. To live as an overman is to live as if your life itself were a work of art, shaped by your hands, guided by your vision. The herd may mock, the crowd may resist, but in that act of creation lies the only true dignity. So as we scroll endlessly, consume mindlessly, and conform unconsciously, perhaps we should pause and remember Nietzsche's challenge. Are we becoming last men, satisfied with comfort and distraction? Or can we rise to the harder, lonelier, but infinitely richer path of becoming creators of our own values? The illusion of morality can keep us safe, but it can never make us great. The courage to create meaning, that is the task Nietzsche leaves for us. The question is, are we brave enough to take it up?